Hello, 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 and welcome to episode 33 of the Wool Needles Hands Knitting Podcast. My name is Tayler, and I will be your host. This is a podcast primarily about knitting, though we do get up to other fiber-related topics from time to time. I'm coming to you from Henderson, Nevada, which is a small suburb outside of Las Vegas, Nevada in the southwest United States. This is where I'm from, and this is where I live with my husband, Brandon, our 3.5-year-old son, Angus, our 6-month-old son, Ronan, and our fat house cat, Oscar. Thank you so much for stopping by to check out the podcast. If you are a new viewer and subscriber, welcome. And if you are a returning viewer and subscriber, welcome back. Thank you for coming back time and time again every time I upload something new here on the Wool Needles Hands Fiber Journey channel. I have a really great show lined up for you guys today. Lots of knitting talk. I have a finished object, a couple works in progress, and some really awesome acquisitions that I want to share with you guys. Plus, I'm going to open up a new segment on the podcast, and then we're going to touch base on where we're going to get started for the Wool Needles Hands book talk, which is going to be based around the book 3 Bags Full by Leonie Swann. But first, let's go ahead and talk about where you can find me on the interwebs. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so via email. The email address associated with the podcast is woolneedleshands@gmail.com. You can also send snail mail my way if you feel so inclined. There is a P.O. Box address linked to the podcast. You can find that in the Abouts tab on the homepage of the channel. The podcast also has a Pinterest page now, which is a really great way if you need a visual reminder of anything that's mentioned on the show. All of that is curated and collected over there, so it's kind of an easy click and go form of show notes, I guess you could say. Our Pinterest moderator is Steffi, who is at Hootie Knits. She lives in Austria, but she is going to be helping here moderate and compile and curate that Pinterest page for all of us. So thank you so much, Steffi. Of course, there is a Ravelry group associated with the podcast as well. You can find us by going to Ravelry, clicking on the groups tab, and typing in Wool Needles Hands or Wool Needles Hands and Knitting Podcast. Join the group over there. There's a book club going on. We have a couple of knit-alongs going on. I have another knit-along kind of in the works that's going to be coming up that's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of fun things to talk about over there, so do make sure that when you're done watching this, or even right now, head over there and join the Ravelry group. You can contact me on Ravelry as well. You can send me direct messages that way if you have any questions, and you can just do so by finding me as @WoolNeedlesHands. I'm also most active on Instagram. I have 2 Instagram accounts, one associated with my knitting and the podcast, the other associated with my hand-dyed yarn company, Fiber for the People. My knitting and podcast related Instagram is @WoolNeedlesHands, and then you can find my hand-dyed yarn over at fiber.for.the.people. If you'd like to learn more about Fiber for the People yarn, you can do that by heading over to the shop site, which is fiberforthepeople.com. You can head over there now, see what's in stock in the shop right now, check out the dyed order options for solid colors or the special order options for sweater quantities of yarn. Lots of good stuff over there. The About section will tell you all about how I got started dyeing yarn. Just really a cool place to stop if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Fiber for the People yarn, but also definitely check out Fiber for the People on Instagram. That's where I take photos of all of the amazing yarn that comes to the shop and especially keep you updated on the day-to-day goings-on of the business. Speaking of Fiber for the People yarn, there is a shop update coming this Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is October 6th at 10 a.m. Pacific. I say Pacific Standard Time because I'm so used to saying that. It's actually technically Pacific Daylight Time until Daylight Savings Time is over, so that's kind of how you can keep an idea. But Pacific Standard Time and Pacific Daylight Time, it's the same time if you were to Google it. So it's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time / Pacific Daylight Time, and you can find the shop, like I said, at fiberforthepeople.com. In just a moment, I'm going to show you what is coming to this shop. So without further ado, here is a whole slew of what I like to call yarn sexies. super excited for Saturday's update. It's going to be a little bit of a change of pace from the typical shop updates, only because there are only going to be 2 variegated and speckled colorways in the shop. Typically I do at least 3, most of the time 4 speckled or variegated colorways. But this update, I'm getting in touch with the fall vibes and I'm feeling out some of the different things that I'm looking forward to knitting in these next few months. So I'm creating a shop update collection that kind of is aligned with that. So there will be 3 really popular solid colors that I've offered in the shop before, which you saw just recently in the Yarn Sexies. I'm going to have 2 of my returning variegated and speckled colorways, and then 1 tonal colorway, which is called Clay, like you just saw. That is a colorway that's been in very high demand. I knit a hat out of that colorway not long ago. When I had the colorway originally in the shop, it was a Lucky Strike one of a kind, but I am trying my hand at recreating that colorway, so that will be offered in the shop on Saturday as well. So I'm super excited for this more fall-inspired shop update. So definitely don't forget to hit up the shop on Saturday, and if you do decide to come, please use the coupon code WNH. It is a new coupon code for my viewers here at the Wool Needles Hands podcast. All you have to do is type in WNH in the coupon box, and that will give you 10% off your order. If you have recently used a WNH Love coupon in the past, you can use this one and get yourself an additional discount as a thank you for coming back time and time again and checking out the podcast here on the Wool Needles Hands Fiber Journey channel. Also, while you're over there, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. You can do that by scrolling all the way down to the bottom. There is a box where you type in your email address and you click subscribe. I only send out newsletters to let you know when the shop updates are coming. Nothing spammy, nothing weird, and they're always very brief. I don't make elaborate newsletters and tell you all kinds of stories. They're very brief, mostly just images of what's going to be in the shop with the names of the colorways, quick headlines of any news that I want you guys to know about, plus a link to the newest podcast episode. So it's very brief, just information that you might want to know if you're interested in Fiber for the People shop updates. So definitely don't forget to sign up for the newsletter over there. Alright guys, on the last episode of the podcast, I announced a giveaway for the 6,000 subscribers, and I'm so excited to tell you that we are almost to 6,500 subscribers already, and it's only been 2 weeks. So thank you guys, all of you that have subscribed to the podcast previously, and those of you that are new to the podcast, giving it a shot. Thank you so much for coming and supporting this little corner of YouTube that I have going over here. It means so much to me. And what's even cooler about this, now I had a pretty unconventional giveaway question in the last episode. It was, imagine that you are writing a mystery script for a movie and the plot line is that somebody's yarn stash was stolen. I wanted you to tell me who stole it, where was it taken, and why was it stolen. And I'm telling you guys, I have never had more fun reading the responses for any kind of a question I've asked here than I had with the last responses that were coming through. And I have to tell you that a lot of you guys, when you submit your response, I was seeing it on my phone. And so I didn't have a chance to actually interact or like it all the time. I would kind of read it in the notifications box. So if you didn't get a like from me or a heart from me, it's coming. Trust me, I've been reading all of them and sharing them because they're hilarious. You guys are so creative and just thoughtful to even like take the time to participate like that. It means so much to me, so thank you. So I want to share with you guys just a few of the responses that came through for the giveaway question on the last episode of the podcast, but I urge you to definitely head over to episode 32 and just read through the comments. It's hilarious. I think that some of you guys like are natural writers, and hopefully maybe that's what you're doing with your life, because I was super, super impressed. And maybe somebody actually needs to like write a short story about this very thing and publish it within this community. I think that would be awesome. But anyway, thank you guys so much for the awesome participation. So without further ado, I want to share with you guys just a few randomly selected responses for last episode's giveaway question. Okay, so I have my computer on my lap, so I'm going to go ahead and read to you from the responses. So this first one is from Bonnie Lundholm, and as a reminder, the question was, a yarn stash is stolen, who stole it, why was it stolen, where was it taken? And this is kind of like the synopsis of, or the plot line of a mystery story. So the first one is from Bonnie Lundholm. She says, the cat lady down the street had been concerned about the coming winter. She was sure her cats would be too cold and she wasn't sure what to do. While attending the block party hosted by the knitter, she caught a glimpse of all of the beautiful yarns and had an answer to her problem. Later the next week, the cat lady snuck into the knitter's house and took the entire stash. She took it home and got busy. The theft was a complete mystery to the police. The husband, of course, was the prime suspect, but there was no evidence against him. It was an unsolved crime until neighbors began to see cats in sweaters at the cat lady's house. Some of the cats were even wearing socks and hats as well. When all the cats were clothed, the remaining stash reappeared in the knitter's home. It was greatly depleted and covered in cat hair. Okay, so that's just an example of what we're working with here. It's absolutely awesome. Let's go to another one. So the next one was by, I'm just kind of scrolling through, okay, here. This one's by Danielle Boots, and it's cute because it kind of reminds me a little bit of the story that we're reading right now, or that we're going to be starting reading for the book club. It says, Miss Maple, the cleverest sheep in the whole world, stole the yarn for Ham, the butcher, so while he convalesced, he could knit. She's hoping that while he knits, he will feel differently about the sheep that provide the woolly goodness. It's really cute and sweet. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Oh, the knitter's husband stole the yarn stash and shipped it off to Antarctica in a jealous rage. He hoped she would give up on yarn and turn to cooking as a hobby. Little did he know that there is a knitters group at a science station on the ice. They hunted down the rightful owner of the beautiful stash and returned it to her. Alas, the husband is now living in the doghouse and still hungry. That one was by Tiffany Cole. Absolutely awesome. Okay, let's see what else we have. Oh, by Jacqueline Scott, The Knitter's Cat. He has felt that he had been neglected whilst his owner kept busy working around the house and then just sitting there playing with string and those pointy things. So little by little he started hiding the stash around the house until one day he had had enough. He and the dog, while their owner was out of the house, started stuffing what to them was a huge bag of all the beautiful fiber. To them was the demise of their owner what kept her from playing with them, and took it to the backyard and buried it. When the owner got home, the cat was on his tree, the dog asleep in his normal spot, and no yarn in sight. Several years go by and new owners come move in. They start planting a garden and find the duffel bag full of this yarn. The wife is a beginner knitter, thank goodness, and decides to knit a shawl for the elderly woman who sold them the house. To the elderly woman's delight, she recognized the beautiful fiber. She still couldn't figure out how the yarn turned up in the backyard. The end. And that one is by Jacqueline Scott. I love that one. That's so sweet. I feel like that could actually be like a children's book plotline. Really cute. Denise McDonald says, who stole the stash and why? Well, my husband's car is torn apart in my space in the garage and has been going on 3 weeks. I said enough is enough, let's get this car put back together. Hubby grumbled that he doesn't have the right parts and it's not going back together. The next morning I went to knit on my sweater that is halfway done and the sweater was gone along with the needles. Then I realized my basket with all my yarns was gone. When I went to leave for work the next day, I saw that my hubby's car was in the driveway. On closer inspection, he had repaired the car with my metal needles and bracketed everything up with my yarns. That's amazing. Okay, and let's do one more. Okay, this one's by Fiber Hustle. It says, the thief in question had taken all the yarn in Stephen West's stash. It was then taken to a studio in Los Angeles and hidden in a very large backstage area next to a green room. What was it to be used for? It was a wig challenge for season 4 of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, where the queens had to take all the stash yarn and make it into a high-fashion beehive hairstyle. Just when the cops had RuPaul in cuffs to book him for stealing the yarn, the Scooby-Doo gang showed up and said, hold on, officer, let's see who this really is. When Fred ripped off the RuPaul mask, it was revealed it was Cher. She was looking for new wigs for her never-ending tour. Really, it is never-ending. That's pretty good. Okay, guys, so that's just an example of what we are working with when it comes to these awesome responses for the 6,000 subscriber giveaway. Again, thank you so much for participating, and also if you haven't read the other responses, head over to episode 32. The comments down below, you have to read them. They're really great. You guys are so creative, so thank you guys so much. Okay, the winner of the 6,000 subscriber giveaway was comment number 19. It's Melissa Saenz, and this was her response. An eccentric cat burglar known to the locals as the Knit and Kitten Bandit couldn't find any yarn in her local shops that suited her hands. Her overly sensitive hands were perfect for cracking old safes, but felt miserable if she used cheaply made acrylic craft yarn to make her beloved amigurumis. She much preferred squeezing and squishing the yarn before she purchased. She only had 2 amigurumi cats left after this heist, and she wasn't sure where she could find her next yarn purchase. Then she noticed the basket in the corner with a whip. Beside the basket were 3 bags and 2 big tubs with lids askew full of luxurious yarns in every color imaginable. With a sigh of relief, she placed the pearls and diamonds back into the safe along with a teal amigurumi cat, locked the safe, and replaced the painting on the nail as it had been. She emptied half the basket into her black thief bag, grabbed the 3 yarn stash bags, looked longingly at the 2 tubs, but shook her head. No need to be greedy. As she left through the second store window, reversing her entrance, she thought, oh yes, these squishy soft yarns will make some lovely Ami cats, and other goodies. Who needs diamonds when you have all this yarn to play in? Although maybe I'll come back for the pearls and take a look in those 2 tubs in the future. All right, Melissa, thank you so much for participating in the 6,000 subscriber giveaway. Your response is awesome. I can't wait to get your prize out to you. If you need a reminder of what that prize is, definitely check out the previous episode, and I'm super, super excited to get that out to you. So thank you so much to everyone who subscribes here at the Wool Needles Hands Fiber Journey channel and everybody who participated in the giveaway. It means so, so much to me. We have 2 knit-alongs going on over here at the podcast. The first is the Wool Needles Hands Year of Hats Cal 2018. You can learn all about this knit-along over on the Ravelry page. There is a thread for this knit-along that's always stuck to the very top of our overall forum that we have over there on the podcast page. Definitely check that out for all the information surrounding this knit-along. I do want to give you guys a little bit of an update to the guidelines for this knit-along. I have an idea, so I want to make a modification to what we have in the guidelines so far, and this is affecting December, so you don't have to worry about anything that's currently going on. This is something that we're going to do in December instead of what I had already planned for the December portion of this knit-along. I have decided, now December was previously or originally knitting a hat with stripes. Lately, I have gotten really into colorwork knitting. I've only done 1.5 colorwork hats just recently, and I'm hooked on this craft, this technique of knitting. I love it so much. So I've decided to change December to knitting hats that are colorwork hats. So something with a fair isle or a Scandinavian stranded knitting motif. It has to be colorwork. I'm not going to count intarsia. Only because that's not really what I mean when I say colorwork. I'm excluding intarsia. So it needs to be a stranded colorwork hat, whether that's, you know, Scandinavian or Fair Isle or whatever you want to do. It doesn't even have to be either of those, but it just has to be stranded knitting. So that means we should see floats on the back of your work. And I am going to make that a requirement too, that when you share your finished object for December, that you not only share the finished object on the right side, but you flip it inside out and you show us your floats in all their glory, no matter how bad or great or whatever they are. That's not the point. The point is just to show all of the work that we've done to create a stranded colorwork hat. So don't feel weird about showing off your floats. Be proud of the work that you've put into it. I hope I'm not making anybody uncomfortable by doing that. I just thought it would be fun to kind of see the inside and the outside. And please, if you've been watching this podcast, you know that I'm not even about that. So show it loud and proud. I just want to see what you guys have going in the way of color work. So we are going to be doing dipping into that skill set for December. So if you go and you look at the guidelines for the Wool Needles Hands Year of Hats knit along on Ravelry, you will notice that I have changed December to knitting a colorwork stranded hat. All right, so we have just wrapped up the month of September. The month of September was all focused on knitting hats with cables, including, even though it's not a cable, but just because it's a cool design element, including the Latvian braid. So if you did knit a hat that had a Latvian braid in the design, then that will definitely count. And that's because I had just recently knit a hat with a Latvian braid and I loved it so much that I decided to make it part of the September, you know, cable hats. So that counts as well. So I'm so excited about all of the gorgeous hats that have been coming through the finished object thread, some really, really beautiful ones. I'm excited to share those with you guys, and I'm also going to be sharing with you guys the winner for the month of September. So all really exciting stuff. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and share with you guys some of the finished objects from the September month of the Wool Needles Hands Year of Hats Cal 2018. just stunning. And actually one of the designs that I featured just there is called the Gable Hat, and that is a pattern that just came out. It was just released by Tabby from the Hey Sister podcast. I think that hat is gorgeous. When I saw her talking about it on the podcast, I was just drooling. It's so beautiful, so textured and like thick and warm. Love it so much. So you guys, great, beautiful cabled hats. Thank you so much for just putting, you know, amazing, beautiful work into that finished object thread. It's so inspiring. But let's go ahead and announce the winner of the September portion of the knit along. The winner for September is Ports 487. She knit the traveling cable hat, which is a design from Pearl Soho. It's gorgeous. It's in the most beautiful gold mustard color. I love it. I definitely need to add this to my queue sometime down the road. It's such a beautiful, heavily textured hat. So Ports 487, I couldn't find your name on Ravelry. I apologize. Please get in touch with me. If I don't hear from you, I will get in contact with you. If you don't get in touch with me, or if you can't get in touch with me on Ravelry, email me at woolneedleshands@gmail.com, and then also send me a direct message on Instagram. Just cover all three of those bases. Things get crazy and busy over here, so I definitely want to make sure I hear from you, just in case I happen to not email you right away or direct message you right away. I want to be able to get your prize out to you. If you need a reminder of the prize that's coming your way for the September portion of the knit along, you can check out episode 32, the previous episode. But again, congratulations. Your hat is beautiful. I can't wait to get your prize out to you and everybody else. Beautiful hats. I love them so much. I hope you guys are having a lot of fun with this. I'm loving this. I haven't been participating as I haven't been as disciplined each month, but I've gotten really into knitting hats and just having that camaraderie with you guys. So thank you for being with me in this, because it's just so much fun, and also for creating a really cool atmosphere with the knit along. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so moving into October, we are knitting hats with fingering weight or sock weight yarn, and that's pretty much the only requirement. Any hat you want, it just has to be knit with a sock weight yarn, kind of like the one I'm wearing right now. This is a hat that I knit a couple years ago. It's the Exploring in the Woods, kind of like a lace pattern hat by Melinda Vermeer. It's an amazing knit. Like if you want to knit something that you're going to wear all the time, definitely try to find something more neutral. I find that I can't wear this with very many things because of the color, but amazing hat otherwise, because I could literally, the shape of the hat, the pattern on the hat, you could wear it with anything if you choose the right color. So this is a really great option. This is a fingering weight hat. It's actually knit with 2 strands of lace weight yarn held together, but that's fingering weight yarn essentially. So that is what we're going to be doing for October. The FO threads and the chatter threads for October are up and ready to go. So let's go ahead and get into October hat knitting. All right, guys, the next knit along or make along that we have going on right now is the Wool Needles Hands Garland Along. We are making garlands, whether they are crochet or knit, that we can use as decor in our homes, whether it be for a holiday, a special occasion, or just as general, you know, knitty or crochet like home decor. It's just for fun. A lot of cool ideas out there. Definitely check out the chatter thread over on the Ravelry page for more information about that, but that is going on right now. It ends the 1st of next year, so January 1st essentially. So you really, no rush, and it's just kind of easy, relaxed make along. I'm doing this because I'm planning on making a crochet garland for my niece who's expected in November for her baby room. I haven't gotten started yet because I've had some yarn changes, which I'll talk about in just a second, but don't feel rushed. Do this however you want to do this, but just keep in mind that no matter how many garlands that you make, you can only submit 1 finished object to the FO thread by January 1st. So that's really the only requirements for this. And again, it is knit or crochet. If you have some ideas for really cool crochet garlands that you've seen somewhere, or you have some ideas of your own, definitely add it to the chatter thread. Help some people out with finding really cool ideas for crocheted garlands or knit garlands, but really they're everywhere, you guys. Lots of ideas out there. In the last episode of the podcast, I talked about this book that I just recently picked up called Crochet Kaleidoscope. It's pretty much just all about granny squares. Lots of really great, beautiful granny squares in here. They call them they're just motifs, like really fun, colorful motifs. And this is what I'm going to be using for the garland that I'm making for my niece's baby room. And I just recently made some yarn changes, so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what I'm going to be doing going forward. Okay, so after struggling with crocheting with cotton and trying to come up with some granny squares using cotton yarn, I've decided that I'm not going to be knitting those granny squares with cotton. Cotton just doesn't give enough, and crochet granny squares are super fussy in my opinion, and not a general granny square I think that you would be you know, creating to make a granny square blanket. I know that those ones are probably pretty simple from what I've gathered, but the ones that I'm doing are pretty intricate. Like I said, you can see when you look in this book, and I'll just give you like an example, for example. They're pretty like fancy and intricate designs. I mean, if you just look at the front, you can see that they're not your typical granny square, and that's kind of what I was looking for, a variety of shape and size for each of the different elements on the garland, and so that was what I was going for. But some of them, I mean, considering I'm a complete newbie crocheter, they were just too fussy for me. And then the fact that the cotton wasn't forgiving and it wouldn't stretch was just driving me crazy, because I really couldn't get in there and pull out those loops and do all the different things that I needed to do and have it look nice. And so I decided I was just going to do acrylic yarn, because that way it's washable, and if it gets dusty and she wants to clean it, something like that. So I went to Michael's and I picked up a really fun variety of acrylic yarns that I'm going to be using for this garland, and I kind of am happy because it's a lot more per ball than I'm ever gonna need for a garland, but I figured this would make a really cool color work, you know, baby sweater or toddler sweater or a blanket, something like that. Really fun colors that I'll definitely be able to use later on for the babies, for the little ones, things that I know can be washed. So that's all good news. So this is the spectrum of colors that I'm going to be using for my crochet garland. Really, really fun colors. I put it in this basket so it was easy for me to hold it up and show you like that, but this is from, I think it's I don't know if it's just a Michael's, but it's Loops and Threads. It was a buy one get one free, and these are like $3.50 a ball, so totally scored on that. They're 100% acrylic, so perfect for what I'm doing with this. Lots of really fun, kind of pretty colors. I was trying to go with something that wasn't too bright and over the top, and these colors do look really bright in the camera, but I thought they looked just really pretty otherwise. They look really nice together. And I'm not going to use, I mean, obviously I'm not going to use every color in each granny square, but it would be kind of a cool way to like mix a few of the colors together in one motif, and then do a few others in the other motif, bringing colors in from the previous. I don't know, you kind of get where I'm going with that. But yeah, so that's what I've decided to do. Much more forgiving, you know, an acrylic yarn has a little bit more stretch, a little bit more give, and I think it's going to just be a lot more fun to work with overall. And it's a good solid worsted weight yarn, so it won't take a long time to create each of the different little patch or motifs for the garland. So I'm really excited about that. So that is what I'm going to be doing. I have yet to get started. I'm not in a super hurry. The baby's due in November. And I know that's only a month, and I do have other things, you know, going on, so I do need to prioritize my time, but I figure, it'll take me maybe like an hour or so to knit each one, maybe a couple episodes of a show, or crochet each one. So I'm not too worried about time, but we shall see. So that is my plan. Those are my new yarns. I think they're really, really pretty, super fun, bright colors. Yeah, they're super bright when I hold them up on the camera. Anyway, that is what I have going for the Wool Needles Hands Garland Along. So definitely get involved if you're interested. Head over to the Ravelry group and start there. Okay, so I brought out what I like to call, and pardon my terminology for this, but I call this my big ass sunflower cup because it's huge. Like, this is like a flower pot of a coffee mug. It's not a typical size coffee mug, but it's really great if I'm drinking a tea that kind of leans towards the strong side. And because more water per tea bag, I guess. Plus it's got this really great like giant handle. I love having a handle I can really get my hand into. That's kind of like a prerequisite when it comes to a really good coffee mug for me. So that's what I have going on here, and I am drinking Pukka Vanilla Chai. I actually just picked this up at Sprouts today because it's a caffeine-free chai tea. Typically chai, you know, it's a black tea, and so you find it, most varieties are caffeinated, which I don't have a problem with, but I just know that sometimes I like to have a nice spicy chai at the end of the day, and I don't want to have to worry about the caffeine. So this is like, it's perfect, really. It's caffeine-free organic lift flushed with cinnamon warmth, and it's a beautiful box. I love these colors together, but I have to read this to you guys because it's just so good. It says, climb on our back. Wait, Soar on Mother Nature's coattails, climb on her back, she's ready to lift you up a fairly traded magic carpet of sweet organic vanilla tingling with cinnamon and ginger, and tender with cardamom, fennel, and licorice. There's no caffeine here, just 6 herbs bristling with energy, so heat some water and off you go. Have an amazing adventure. It's like, hello, who? I want to know whose job it is to write that. Actually, I think it's, I don't know, he has signed his name here, and he is considered the master herbsmith. I wish I could like read it to you. It's this real like tiny signature. Maybe you won't be able to see it, but a little tiny. Does it even matter? Does it, you know what, does it even matter? This is neither here nor there, but that is what I'm having. It's delicious. It's just like it says, it's spicy, but not too overly spicy. You can tell it's not caffeinated because it's not super bitter, meaning it's not a super black dark tea. Don't take me on that. I don't know if that is even a thing, but it's delicious. It's by Pucka, one of my favorite tea brands. 50% because I love the tea and 50% because I love the box. I don't know if that's a valid reason to really like tea, but it's my reason and I'm sticking to it. So, cheers. Okay, I have a finished object for you guys, and it's not 100% finished. Like in my Ravelry notebook, I probably wouldn't put this as 100% finished, but it's like 99.5% finished. So I'm going to show it with you as an FO because I feel like for all intents and purposes, it is totally finished. These, and I can't wait to show this to you because it's so adorable on this big ol' hanger. These are my Elizabeth Zimermann Baby Longies. Is this not just the most cute pair of pants you have seen hanging from a full-sized adult hanger? Like, oh my goodness. Look at these pants, you guys. I can't wait to try them on. I've tried them on Ronan, and if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen recently I posted a picture of Ronan wearing them on the needles. They were actually not finished yet. I had only finished one leg. And they fit him really cute then, but you guys, they fit really, really well. And I tried them on before blocking, and so now that they are blocked, I kind of pulled them and stretched them a little bit just to give me a little bit more room. They fit him with some ease, not positive ease, I guess, but not quite so much negative ease that he's going to grow out of them right away. But I definitely wanted to give it a little bit more space. So when I blocked it, and because this is all cotton, I just ironed them pretty much. So I just ran the iron over them and kind of pulled them and molded them as I went. And they blocked out really, really well. And they're going to fit him really, really nicely, especially in the length department. Now, I didn't add feet to these. The pattern does give you an option for adding little footies, but I knew that if I added footies, I would be limiting how long he could wear them because eventually his legs would get too long and he wouldn't be able to fit. But because they're not ankle length, but because they don't have little feet, he can wear them for a little bit longer before they become too short. And so I think that that's perfect, but I love them so much. I kind of wish I had chosen to do them in a little bit more fun color, but I am going to be adding the I-cord, which is the portion that I haven't finished yet. I'm actually working on it right now, so this is what I have so far. I just blocked these before I started filming, so this was all I had left, and I didn't have enough time to get it finished before the podcast, but I'm working on it. I have this much. It's going to be going around the waist of the pants, so it'll be a little yellow pop of color, and I think it's going to be a really cute little pop of color coming from the waistband of the pants. So you guys, I love these. Such a simple, fast. The only reason why they weren't done any sooner was because I just wasn't working on them, you know, exclusively. But if you wanted to whip a pair of these up in a weekend, you totally could. They're super fast. And then another thing that I love about this, and Elizabeth in her book Knitter's Almanac, and that's actually the book where this pattern comes from. So this is my copy. It's a first edition copy of Knitter's Almanac, and that makes me very proud. It's only shiny because I put a little Ziploc bag like book jacket on it just to keep it from getting any more well loved than it already is. But in this, when she's talking about the pattern, she definitely makes you aware that if you want to change the size, you can essentially just change the proportion you know, like the percentages of the different dimensions or the different numbers and values in her pattern here. So if you wanted to increase the size by 20%, you would just increase the values in the pattern by 20%. And she also talks about how if you want to use a thicker yarn or a thinner yarn, it's not going to change the overall shape of the leggings. It's just going to change the size. And so if you decide you want to make these in a bulky yarn for a larger child, then make it in a bulky yarn and you'll have a larger size legging. It's very common sense and very easy to understand. And Elizabeth Zimermann is amazing for that. She just makes knitting so just sensible and it makes sense when you read her descriptions of things. And so that's really interesting. I do plan on doing another pair of these by changing the proportions and upping it by about 20% so that he has a pair for next winter as well. I'll probably have to even increase it by a little bit more than that, but I might even knit it in a thicker yarn for those two. But really great pattern. A few things. I didn't make any modifications, but I did make a couple mistakes, and I wasn't too concerned about it. The first mistake, which isn't glaringly obvious unless you're looking for, well, I guess when I hold it up there, it's kind of glaringly obvious. You can see this hole right here. This is where the pattern calls for a make one through the back loop, and I did not make it through the back loop. I just made one and just a make one. And whenever you do a make one, it leaves a little hole. And I didn't really notice or pay much attention to it until I had gotten a couple inches down, and I just figured it's really no big deal. So I left it, not a huge issue, but now that I'm looking at it as I'm holding it up, I might go back in there and whip stitch it with a little thread or something just to close it up a little bit. I wouldn't want it opening anymore, but not too bad. And then another thing, so the second leg, there is a little decrease right here. Let's see if you can see it. You might be able to see there's a little decrease right here. Just happened to have one extra stitch at one point. No, that's an increase. I'm sorry. I happen to have one fewer stitches than I needed, and so I added a stitch there. So that's a little, you know, design element that I had to add. Other than that, okay, and so this is something else that I kept thinking about this as I was working the pants, because I was noticing in the crotch, you leave a set of 10 active stitches or live stitches in the crotch. So you have 5 on one side of the crotch, 5 in the front of the crotch and 5 in the back. And then you're going to come in and pretty much Kitchener stitch those together. I think she just calls it weaving, and at the end of the book she tells you how to do it, and it's essentially just grafting them closed. So what I did, because I noticed that when I left those live stitches on my waist yarn, I still had gaps. So here is essentially where those 5 live stitches would have been, about right here. And then I kept knitting up this way, but there was a pretty significant gap about right here in the leg. So you have your crotch stitches, a big gap, and then you have the rest of your stitches going around the leg. And it was on both sides. Well, it didn't really say what to do in that case. It just said to, you know, graft this closed. But I'm thinking, like, I can't just leave these, like, gaping, you know, or these gaps on either side of the crotch stitches after I graft it. So I just figured what I would do is just pick up stitches in those gaps, slip the stitches of the crotch, pick up a couple more stitches, and so on and so forth. So that way I could then Kitchener the whole thing closed and seal up the holes. And that actually worked really, really well. I'm going to take it off this hanger so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. So it's just pretty much a Kitchenered crotch. So you can see right there, there's no holes. So where I'm sticking my fingers, like right now, is where the holes would have been, but there aren't any now because I picked up some stitches and then I grafted the whole thing closed. So if you are going to do this, if you find that you have that same issue, then just pick up the stitches and then Kitchener the whole thing shut, and it's no problem. And again, like Kitchener, you know, a Kitchener closure kind of does leave a little bit of a seam on the inside of the knitted piece, so you have a little bit of a seam right here, and I guess that could be uncomfortable, but again, like, it's really not a big deal because the child will be wearing diapers, so what's more uncomfortable than a diaper? Kitchener seams nothing on a diaper. That's kind of really the only, I guess that's kind of a modification, and then I had a few little mistakes, but the only reason I'm sharing that with you is just because it doesn't matter, right? Like, these are going to be little loved garments that are in the family for a long time, and they're good quality, and they're made by hand with love, and all those little design elements that we leave in them are something special. So those are my little baby longies that Elizabeth Zimermann writes about in her Knitter's Almanac. So I'm super, super excited to have these finished. They are so adorable, so precious. Oh my gosh. I am going to actually, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do a little video of Ronan wearing these. They're going to be all finished, and you guys can see what they look like in action on little baby Ronan. So I'm going to go ahead and add that right now. So I'm pretty sure that every opportunity I take to talk to you about my Veronika cardigan, I'm working on it or something of the like. And that's because I'm usually in the middle of a row when I throw it into my porter bin. And so when I go to share it with you, my needles are all, you know, askew in there because I don't have a full row completed. So that's actually what I'm doing right now. I'm going to go ahead and complete this row. I mean, you guys, I have made super headway with this. It's just kind of a beast of a knit, to be honest. Like, it's all in one piece. There's a little bit of a little bit of sewing together at the end, I believe. And otherwise it's kind of just one giant blanket of a knit, really. And that's okay. I love it. I think it's super cozy to work on. It just keeps growing and growing, and yeah, it's a really great knit. So if you are interested in the Veronika cardigan by Shannon Cook, I highly recommend it. Now this is the only project I took with me to Vogue Knitting Live a couple weekends ago, and so that was all I really worked on while I was there. And this was what I worked on the airplane. Now, little known fact, I am terrified of flying. I don't like flying in airplanes, flying in, I don't know what else I would be flying in, but I just don't like air travel. And I understand it's an incredibly safe form of travel, but it doesn't change the fact that I am careening through open air in a flying sardine can. And that is my perspective of the whole thing. And even flying to San Francisco, which is literally just a hop over the Sierra Nevada mountain range, that is enough, you know, that's enough to make me nervous. I can't even imagine flying by myself. Had I gone to Rhinebeck by myself all the way to New York, I would have been a nervous wreck. But thankfully, I have audio podcasts and my knitting to kind of keep my mind at ease as much as it possibly can be. But what's funny about this project, so I'm just going to hold this up, see if you can catch the mistake in there. Do you see it? Anybody? Anybody? It's right here. I did there's two purl ridges right here, and they're not supposed to be that close together. And so this was on my way back from San Francisco, so back into Las Vegas, and that is an especially stressful kind of route for me, because anytime you fly back into Las Vegas for whatever reason, me personally, this is my experience, it's always very turbulent. There's something about flying into the valley that's just really shaky, and I hate turbulence. Ugh, I hate turbulence. And I think that what must have happened is I just got on a knit kick, and I knit the one row one direction, and I'm supposed to purl on the way back, and I just knit on the way back. I was nervous, and I think that's kind of funny. And I was thinking I would just tink back and change it, but it wasn't until several inches later that I realized I had done that, and so I didn't want to go back, and I figured it's not going to be really noticeable. If this was a really structured, fitted garment, I would definitely go back and change it, but because this is a really blousy, I don't even think that's the right word, but chunky, oversized, kind of like a poncho cardigan, I'm not worried about it. Plus it tells a little bit of a story. I can look back and say, yeah, that was when I was descending into Las Vegas through turbulent airspace. I don't know. So that's that situation. But otherwise, I love this. I really, really love this project, and I'm super excited to have it off the needles. And I think the reason why, and I was challenging myself to try to have it done by the time I podcasted next. So 2 weeks ago I made that challenge to myself. It just didn't get finished in that time frame for me. And that's okay because it's cooling down. The weather is relatively nice right now. It's not super hot, but it's not cool enough to wear any kind of sweater like this. And so I don't feel like I'm in a super hurry to get this off the needles right now because I wouldn't really be able to wear it. So I'm kind of setting a goal that I have this finished by mid-October. So definitely by the next time I podcast. That's what I'm trying to tell myself, is I really want to have this finished by then because I think that's a reasonable amount of time to get this done. It's really not a very challenging knit. It's just definitely time, well, I mean, it's time consuming, but it just seems like it takes a long time because it's one big piece. It's not like a little top-down raglan knit in one piece. It's a big honkin', you know, Swancho cardigan. Is that even like a thing? That's kind of the situation with this. So even though I love working on it, it's just not something that flies by because you always have it around and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. But I'm loving the yarn that I'm working with. This is Patton's Classic Wool Worsted in just kind of like your basic gray color. I believe the pattern calls for, I'm not 100% sure, thinking back, I believe the pattern calls for Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, and that is a really lovely worsted, but it's not anything that I had in my stash. I had a sweater's quantity of this Patton's Classic Worsted in my stash, and I love this yarn, and so I definitely thought it would make for a really great sweater like this. If you are new to Patton's yarn or you've never taken the chance to dive into some Patton's Classic Worsted, it's a fantastic budget yarn. It's really great quality. It's super rustic and hardy. It comes, I mean, it's kind of a woolen spun. It's not, I mean, it kind of seems like a woolen spun yarn. It's got a super, you know, fluffy halo to it. It definitely has a really good halo. Let's see if it'll show here. I don't know if you can see that, but it is a really rustic yarn. It's one of my favorite worsted yarns to go to. So that's what it looks like. You can see there's a halo to it, definitely a little bit more of a rustic yarn. It's just a really great budget yarn if you're looking for a quality rustic yarn and you don't want to break the bank for a larger project, or you want to do some color work with a nice sticky yarn. You don't want to break the bank for that as well. It's really great. It's not as cheap as Wool of the Andes by Knit Picks, but it's not as expensive as, you know, if you were to buy like a Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. I think you can get Shelter for like $13.50 a skein, US. And Patton's Classic for a 50-gram ball is like, I think $6.50. So it's pretty reasonable if you're looking for a larger quantity or you want to do some color work and you don't want a whole skein of yarn, depending on your color work pattern. So yeah, I really love it. And this pattern, this kind of pattern, these needles with this yarn, it's just pretty excellent. All right, I am almost to the end here. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at what I have so far of my Veronika cardigan. So there's no way I can show all of this to you in the frame, so I'm just gonna kind of lift it as I go. This is what I have so far. Now it's kind of hard. I'm gonna pop a picture up so you can see what this looks like on the model. It's a really airy, open, kind of like a poncho cardigan. It doesn't really have sleeves. It almost just has armholes, but the sweater is so kind of open and airy that it just falls over half of the arms. The only thing, I mean, when I look at the schematic on the pattern, I can see what I'm doing here and the different parts of the garment. I can see where they are relative to each other because it's all in one piece. But as I'm going, if I wanted to just kind of wrap it around my body to figure out how it was going to look or how it was going to fit, that would be really difficult because it's so confusing where things are going to go. It's just this like L-shaped piece of fabric right now. But what I think is happening, so I know that this down here, the ribbing at the bottom, that's the bottom hem, and that this on the side over here, this is the shawl that runs up the front where the button band would be of a cardigan. This is that shawl color. So I know it goes something like, I don't know. Let's see. I want to say it's like this, and then this. Am I making a complete fool of myself? Is this like not what it's going to be like at all? But I have a feeling it's kind of like, I'm going to stand up, kind of like what's happening here. So you've got, I'm going to back up for you. So you've got the ribbed border down here. My arm is going to come through here. I believe this is going to be attached here, and then there's going to be like ribbing that's picked up along the bottom. I don't know, that's like the only thing I can imagine for this. Yeah, I really don't know. You guys could let me know what you think. This shirt attracts fuzz like nobody's business, so I apologize if I am hairy from here on out. But anyway, regardless of all of that, I can tell I'm going to love this because the fabric is just right. It's not super heavy. It's not super dense or thick. It's definitely, it's airy. You can see through it. So there's going to be air coming through, which, believe it or not, when you have air coming through your knits, it doesn't mean that the knits are going to be any less warm. That air circulation can actually help to kind of regulate your temperature because wool can keep you so warm. It keeps you more comfortable having a little bit of airflow. And so I like that about this because this is going to be a really big piece, so it's just not going to be overly heavy. So I don't know, I just really love that. And I love kind of the drape of the fabric you can see. And again, that's the yarn too. I mean, it really depends on the yarn that you're using, but this Patton's Classic Worsted has a really nice drape at this gauge, and so it's I don't know, I really love it. I think it's just going to be a really nice staple accessory to throw on over really anything, and I do almost think it would look really cute over a cute date night dress, something that you're going out when it's a little cooler outside with some leggings and some boots. I know like dresses and leggings and boots are like all the rage amongst the knitters right now, and that's kind of like a thing that I like to wear as well when it starts to cool down. So yeah, maybe that's what I will use this with, or wear this with. But yeah, I'm super, super happy with it. It is the Veronika Cardigan by Shannon Cook. So if you're looking for a nice chunky poncho type cardigan, this is a really great place to go. And the pattern is really well written, super clear. Everything is organized and structured really nicely. And I appreciate that in knitting patterns. And there's plenty of pictures of the piece, so you kind of get an idea of what is what. And actually, I think that's a really big contribution to my understanding of how I'm going to be putting this on when it's all finished. The schematic, I mean, of course, the schematic just gives you kind of like the flat piece. And because this is a cardigan all in one piece, it doesn't have just like a sweater appearance to it. It just has like this weird odd shaped blanket look. But when you see it on the model, you can kind of start to understand where the different parts of the sweater are going to go. So super, super love that. This work in progress is actually only living in my Fringe Supply Co. Porter bin. I don't have a project bag for this. When I was in San Francisco, I took this in my Woolallooya bag, which is a Fringe Supply Company kind of tote bag. And it's just because there's too much here. It's hard to stuff this into any other project bag. So I'm just keeping it in my Porter bin. I keep my Porter bin down here and I tote it back and forth between here and the living room, or sometimes I just leave it in the living room on our coffee table. There's a shelf underneath. It's just super portable. Has these nice little handles here, so it's easy to just kind of walk around the house with my stuff going back and forth. There was a part of me that was like, can I just carry this? Can this be my carry-on the airplane? And then I realized that that's not a very good idea. So anyway, that is what my Veronika cardigan is living in. Okay, I'm super excited about this next work in progress. You have not seen this yet. It is a new cast on. I casted this on 2 days ago, and I'm kind of amazed at the progress I've made, and I haven't worked on it at all today. So this is what you're about to see is the progress that I've made, and maybe if you combine all of the time together, like 4.5 hours. I don't know, it's crazy. It's worsted weight, so I think that has something to do with it as well. But I love it so much. And this is an example of the color work rabbit hole that I have just completely gone down ever since doing my Hoopla hat by Diana Walla. So this is kind of a result of that, and I am so happy about it. I love the process so much, especially when you're using really nice yarns that show off the color really well, that give you a really nice contrast. I felt like my Hoopla hat was beautiful and I really loved the process, but that contrast just wasn't there enough for me that I feel like made it super. I mean, it was interesting to do because it was a newish technique for me, but there's something about that super contrasty motif that makes, I think, color work knitting really fun and interesting and diverting. And so this project is definitely doing it for me. This is the Winter's Fern hat by Trin Anelli, a beautiful color work pattern. I would love to see this motif in like a yoked sweater because it's just a really pretty, really simple. And when I say simple, I don't mean that in the sense of simplistic. It's easy to work. If you're a newbie color work knitter like myself, it's actually a really easy pattern to work. You're only working with 2 colors at one time, and you don't have to go far between each color, so you're not having to like pick up your floats or anything like that, or catch your floats, even though I don't think that that's all that challenging, but it's just another step that you have to do, I suppose. But anyway, this is the Winter's Fern hat. There are a few little modifications I've made to this, and I'll talk about that in a second, but really quick, I just want to show it to you. So when I started working with this, all I was seeing when I first started were these colors right here, and I was thinking to myself like, wow, okay, let's just dip back into like 1970s colors and get super retro. And that's really what that looks like. They're just super retro colors, but they're also really beautiful fall colors. And so I loved them. I just knew it would be a real fun fall hat with these colors, and so I'm super happy about it. And then I added in this ecru bear yarn color, and it just all came together, you guys. I love this so much. Like, just look at, I mean, of course, I'm not finished yet, and there's more to the motif than this, but I'm trying to open this up for you. But just look at how beautiful that motif is. So pretty, so easy to work, super interesting. Now here's some of the modifications that I have made to this hat. So really quick before I share those with you, I want to pop up a picture so you can see what the hat looks like. The colors that are in the original hat, I wanted to just, you know, just buy the yarn that I needed to do those exact colors because I love that color combination, but I did not, because that's not frugal and that's not, you know, always the thing that we should be doing. We should definitely be dipping into our stash when we can. And I have lots of worsted weight yarn in my stash, and these colors, I'm really happy that I pulled these because they do look really pretty together. And I'll talk about those in a second. But a couple modifications I made. Now you can see on the original that the very first couple of rows on the brim are a kind of like a yellowy gold color, or like a chartreusey gold color. And that's how the hat starts, is with that contrasting color. The reason why my hat doesn't have that contrast color initially here at the base of the brim is because I just cast it on with the main color all willy-nilly, not thinking about it, and forgot. And because I did an alternating knit 2 purl 2 cast on for this, which takes a little bit of time, and I'd already knit the first couple of rows or rounds, I decided I didn't want to go back and that it wasn't a really big deal. I would just add the contrasting colors at that point. So not a big deal at all, just a couple extra rows in the brim, and that's fine. I kind of like a little bit of a deeper brim anyway. So that's what you're seeing here. So what the pattern has is this orange being the first, well, this contrasting color being the first, and then moving forward, and I just kind of have a little strip of the main color right here, but not a big difference. And then let's see what else. Oh, and then I realized that you're supposed to knit the brim on size 6, and I pulled what I thought was a size 6 circular needle, and I even tested it, and I don't know how I didn't catch this. Turns out it was a size 5, so the brim is just a little bit more snug, but it still fits nicely, so no big deal. That wasn't a purposeful modification, that was, or an intentional modification, that was an accident, but I kind of like the more snug fitting brim. And I'm not exactly sure who this is going to be for yet, but it's kind of nice to know that this also fits my oldest son. So should it be for him, it'll work out perfectly. And then the next thing I decided to do was to add these little bits of navy. So the pattern only calls for 3 colors. The one I have the pumpkin-y color, which is called Sunset in Malabriga Rios, and then this natural Lion Brand pure wool, I believe, and it's a natural color, and then this is Cascade 220 in a beige or taupe color. So those were the 3 I originally started with, but as I started working up the motif, I started thinking that I wanted like a little bit of more of a contrast, to something that would really pop and be super noticeable, and so I decided to go with this navy at the peaks of these little chevrons kind of happening right here. So every place that main color kind of peaked, I did a little bit of that navy, and it's just so pretty. I feel like that kind of makes the hat for me. It just adds this element of contrast that I love so much. So, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't recommend this. I can't recommend this hat enough if you're a new color work knitter, or even if you're a veteran color work knitter and you want to start getting some hats into the mix. It's just a really beautiful pattern and super, super fun. Here are my floats. I really think that I'm doing a pretty good job tensioning everything. They look pretty consistent. I'm keeping my yarn in the same place all the time. My, you know, there's a big, I don't know, I think that it's the whole topic of dominant color in colorwork, stranded colorwork knitting is kind of like a polarizing topic. Some people believe that there is such a thing as dominant color, and some people think that that's a complete sham and that there is no such thing. And this is what I've, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm keeping colors that I want to be, you know, dominant in my left hand, and the colors that are going to be the less dominant color in my right. So that's why I'm bringing this up. But from my very, very short experience, and from what I've been reading, because I have done some reading, dominant color is more of an issue, or not even an issue, but is more of a technique in Fair Isle knitting, because the motifs, the Fair Isle motifs, there are more stitches of a particular color in a row than in Scandinavian stranded colorwork knitting. Your repeats of color are fewer and far between, you have a more consistent repeat of color. So I don't think that makes sense. So what I'm saying is that you have you're changing colors more frequently in Scandinavian stranded colorwork, if I'm not mistaken, whereas in Fair Isle, generally you're not changing colors as frequently. And so dominant and less dominant colors are a thing, because you can notice the ones that come forward and the ones that kind of are in the back, because you have longer stretches of a single color. When you're changing colors more frequently, that's just much less noticeable, so it's not even a thing that should be considered really. What really should be considered in stranded Scandinavian Norwegian style knitting is just your tension. As long as your tension is pretty even, your colors are going to be pretty much the same. But in Fair Isle, because there are more colors, you know, in a stretch, your tension's important too, but you can also make one more dominant by holding it to the left, meaning that it would go underneath the lesser dominant color. I don't know, you can learn a little bit more about this if you check out Diana Walla's YouTube channel, Paper Tiger. She talks about it over there. Also, if you pick up, and I actually have, also if you check out this book, this is called Alternate. This is by Andrea Rangel. This is modern knitting motifs, kind of this stranded colorwork, not in any particular style necessarily. This isn't a Fair Isle or a Scandinavian style motif dictionary. It's just modern motifs, but she does talk in here a little bit about dominant colors. It's actually in the introduction to the book when she is kind of explaining the process of all of this and giving you some tips. She has a whole page devoted to color dominance that you can see right here. And that's exactly what she talks about, is one color will come forward and the other color will stay in the background, depending on where you're placing your yarn and which side your yarn is being worked from. And so that's kind of, I've been reading this, I've been doing some interesting, you know, research online about it, and there's two different schools of thought on it. I know if you watch Arnie and Carlos on YouTube, they have a podcast. They are two Norwegian, I believe, Scandinavian knitters, and they will tell you that color dominance isn't a thing, it's all about your tension. And I think that when you're referring to Scandinavian stranded colorwork, that is true, like I said. But I don't know, what do you guys think about that? I know it's like a huge hot topic right now, but whatever, we digress a little bit. But I just think it's interesting, and it is something that I was considering when I was doing this. So there are colors that are more dominant and colors that are less dominant because of where I was holding them in the project. But overall, I'm really in love with this pattern. So if you're looking for a really fun colorwork hat to knit, perhaps for December's hat for the Wool Needles Hands Year of Hats knit along, maybe Winter's Fern by Trin and Nellie is for you. It's a really, really fun pattern. Oh, and I have also gotten a few comments on my little avocado progress keeper here. This, believe it or not, came from Michaels, and not just the charm, like the whole progress keeper, like with the little lobster clip and everything. It's one of their little brands that they have, and they are little charms with the little clip and everything, just like for progress keepers. I don't know what else they would be used for other than for progress keepers. And so yeah, they have like, they have a bicycle and a cute little trailer, and they have little gumball machines, some really, really cute ones. And so I was pleasantly surprised at Michael's the other day when I found this cute little avocado. I had like 6 of them in my basket. I was just gonna get a whole bunch, but then I had to stop myself because that's ridiculous. I was thinking I would get like 6 different progress keepers, and then they had this cute little cactus, what looked like a jewelry dish, but it was like, I don't know, like this big, and I was thinking I could just set that on my desk back here and keep my little progress keepers in there, and then anytime I need a progress keeper, I'd go over and grab one out of my dish. And then I remembered that I can't do that because I have a 3.5-year-old, and they would end up, you know, attached to one of his transformers. Changed my mind about that. Saved myself a huge headache. Let me go ahead and show you what the yarn that I'm using for this. Now this is again all stash yarn. So this is yarn that I've had, and in some cases for a really long time. And so I'm really happy to be able to use some of it. So first, this beautiful orange color. It's kind of like a pumpkin orange color. This is Malabrigo Rios, which is their worsted base, and it's called Sunset, and it's beautiful. It's 100% superwash merino worsted weight yarn. Really, really pretty. And then my other contrasting color is just a natural ecru yarn, and this is Lion Brand's more high-end line called Pure Wool. It's a single ply woolen spun yarn, and it's beautiful. I really, really love it. It's a really great quality. It's kind of the perfect yarn if you're going to do a cabled or like an Aran fisherman sweater, and I actually think this is what they recommend for their fisherman cardigan that they have on their website. Love this. Really beautiful. It's actually slightly heavier than a basic worsted. This is more of an Aran weight, and I do know that it's probably going to bloom a little bit when I block the hat, but I'm okay with that. My gauge, actually, when I do color work, tends to be a little looser, and I think it's just the way that I tension my yarn, and so a little bit of blooming on the part of this yarn I really don't think will be an issue. Oh, there's Oscar. Come here. No? Okay. And then my navy color that I decided to add, this is a giant Frankenstein cake of yarn. It's actually all this particular yarn, but there's several different lengths of it in here, and I don't know what genius came over me thinking that I needed to put that all into one ball, but I did. But it's okay, I probably won't use much of it. So anyway, this is Cashmere Merino DK by Debbie Bliss, and it's just a really beautiful cashmere merino blend DK weight yarn, and I love it. It's perfect with all of these other colors, especially for a really nice fall combination. And then the main color is this taupe Cascade 220 100% non-superwash worsted weight. I love it. It's a really nice basic kind of neutral color. So all of these together, the whole palette of colors for this project, if I can get this without having it all fall apart, pardon my strands here, but these are all the colors that I'm using. And they're really perfect. They just are so fall, so beautiful in fall, and I love them so much. So that is my Winter's Fern by Trin Anelli, and I'm super, super happy with it. My Winter's Fern is living in my Fringe Supply Co. field bag. This is the tartan plaid field bag, one of my favorites. Love this. It's a great grab and go. It kind of goes with all of your outfits, especially in the fall. But I wanted to share this with you because I actually have joined the Enamel Pin Club, and only really because my sister-in-law got me one when we were in Vogue Knitting Live, and I love it so much. And then I picked one up when I visited Firebird Yarns on Haight Street in San Francisco, and then I just have a San Francisco enamel pin. They're all so cute. This is the one that my sister-in-law picked up for me, and it says Hella Hygge on it, and it's so adorable. I can't remember which booth she got it in, but it's really cool. This skull, kind of like a candy skull type, this came from Firebird Yarns in San Francisco. It's a new yarn shop, a really cool yarn shop. I love this so much because of the gold and the black, but also because inside the skull you can see that there's a ball of yarn. Like, how cool is that? And then my little San Francisco enamel pin. So these guys are adorning my field bags. I think I don't want him to have too many because I feel like it would make it super heavy, but I like these. Super cute. So that is where I am keeping my Winter's Fern, but not for long because I'm pretty sure this sucker is going to be done in no time because it just flies off the needle. So I'm super, super happy about that. So definitely in the next episode, this will be finished. All right, you guys, I want to open up a new segment, a semi-regular segment here on the podcast, and I'm going to call this Project Forecasting. I've done this before in the past, and this is just where I take a moment to share with you the next 2 projects in my queue on Ravelry. So lately, I have gotten really serious about organizing my Ravelry account and making sure that my projects are up to date and that my notebook is all organized so that if you were to go and check it out, you should easily be able to see what I'm working on, what I have plans for, and some of the favorites that I have. I've even organized all of my favorites by category, so I'm excited about that. So my queue is very clean. It's got 5 items in it, and I have them in the order in which that I would like to work on them. And so I want to use this as an opportunity to kind of forecast that with you guys. I've mentioned this recently on the last couple of episodes of the podcast, but one of my major goals, and it's kind of like a resolution, it's not really a New Year's resolution because it's, you know, September, October, but it's my early New Year's resolution. I want to start becoming a regular garment knitter. That doesn't mean I only want to exclusively knit garments. It just means that I always want to have a garment in the works. And then once one is finished, I want to pull another garment onto the needles. So that's kind of, I really want to start building my garment collection to deepen my skill set a little bit, get some, you know, knowledge about sweater construction, and not just top down in the round sweaters, but like, you know, constructed pieced sweaters, so I can really learn the ins and outs of garment knitting. So that's kind of a goal for me. And also I want to start diving into more difficult techniques, color work. Brioche is going to be coming down the pipe, I'm sure, soon. Things that are, you know, relevant to me and my climate and everything. I don't want to try to overdo it, but just also skills that I've really wanted to learn. And so my efforts at organizing my Ravelry notebook are kind of all in that vein. And so that's kind of what this is all about. So in my queue, I will most often have a garment and then a smaller project and then a color work project, unless I, you know, double dip on some of those. So it might sound a little convoluted, but I have a plan. I have a grand scheme to keep things organized. I'm not going to turn into a super monogamous knitter, but I'm definitely going to limit how many projects I have going on at one time. I would really like to keep that number to 3, 3 active projects. I just think that any more than that can become stressful, so that's kind of a goal with that as well. So I just want to share with you my 2 upcoming projects. Once my Veronika Cardigan is finished, I'll cast on my next garment, and not until then. So if I have one garment on the needles, I will not cast on another one until it's finished. That's kind of like the rule I'm giving myself. So the next garment that I want to knit, that I have actually, and I have marinated on this and really put a lot of time into thinking about what I wanted to do. And I went from wanting to do The Weekender by Andrea Mowry, and then I was thinking that I wanted to do, I think it's called the Docklight, but it's a Brooklyn tweed pattern. And then I went, you know, back and forth to a few different, like Brooklyn tweed, and then the Andrea Mowry, and then there was a Caitlin Hunter pattern. And then I started to think, like, I really want to narrow this down to like an essential item in my wardrobe, something I really want in my wardrobe that's going to last a long time, that's going to hold its shape, what have you. And I also wanted it to kind of have a particular shape. I'm super into kind of the boxier look right now because I think that it's a silhouette that works on all body types really well, depending on the sizing, meaning like the literal like size, whether it's a large box or a small box on your body. I just think it's a nice, comfortable shape, I guess. And I might be wrong and you might disagree with me, and that's fine. But that's just kind of how I look at it. I like that boxy look. And so I've been looking for some more boxier knits. And so I finally settled on a really cute boxy cardigan called Truss. This is a Brooklyn tweed pattern by Melissa Whirl, and it is so beautiful. I'm going to pop a picture of it here. So this is called Truss. It has a really beautiful kind of diagonal seam line kind of running down the side that gives it a nice kind of dimensionality, a little bit of texture. It's just really beautiful. So this is the first in my queue right now that I would like to knit as soon as I get the Veronika Cardigan cast off and it's finished and blocked and everything. And I have the yarn for this project. I actually purchased this yarn with the intention of knitting The Weekender by Andrea Mowry. And it's a beautiful sweater. It's just that I think I was kind of seeing it everywhere. It's something like I saw it and I thought this would be a cute sweater to knit, and then it kind of started popping up everywhere, and that's fine. It's just that for whatever reason it kind of took the took the wind out of my sails a little bit because I wanted to do something different, something I hadn't seen a bunch. And I don't know, is that a good reason? Is that even justifiable? But that's just what it was, is I just decided I'm going to hunt down something that's new to me, that I haven't seen a whole bunch yet. And so this truss cardigan is just perfect. And this also too, I think I would wear this more often, knowing the way that I dress, especially in the fall and the winter. It's got some ease to it, so it's comfortable, but it's not so much ease that I'm gonna feel, I don't know, not frumpy, but I think you get what I'm saying. Sometimes too much positive ease, and then of course, you know, your body heat and all of that can cause things to grow a little bit if they're made from wool, and so I didn't even want to have to worry about that, and so I decided to go away from the weekender and move to this more structured, but still with plenty of positive ease cardigan. I have Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. I have the sweater's quantity of this in the Long Johns colorway, so this is a really pretty deep, you know, red colorway here. Brooklyn Tweed Shelter is a worsted weight woolen spun yarn. So it is not a worsted spun yarn. It has not been carded. It's just a woolen spun fiber, and you can kind of see that it does have plies, but they're not smooth and nicely combed plies. They're a little bit more woolly. So this is a woolen spun yarn. I listened to a lecture by Clara Parks at Vogue Knitting Live in San Francisco just recently, and she compared woolen spun and worsted spun. Worsted spun was, I can't remember the particular Saturday Night Live comedian from like the 70s and 80s, but the woolen spun example was Gilda Radner, and I think that that's like a perfect, you know, kind of person example if you think of the hair when it comes to woolen spun. So that's what this is. So I have enough of this to knit the truss by Melissa Whirl, so I'm really, really excited about that. 2 skeins are caked. I am going to start swatching for that pretty soon so that I can get my gauge and know where I'm at, and I'm really going to challenge myself to knit a full-on gauge swatch and then block it. That just gives me the heebie-jeebies like nobody's business, just the time that it takes to do that. I don't know, it just but it's one of those things that I really need to just get over, because it's really what you have to do to get the construction right, to get the sizing right. And I have been watching a lot of the Fruity Knitting podcast, and if you are not familiar with this podcast, you need to find it because it's so good. Andrew and Andrea are just so fun to watch. They're adorable. But Andrea is like my, I don't know what you call that. I would love to one day be that kind of knitter. She's just so disciplined. She's a monogamous knitter, and the construction of the garments that she knits, they're beautiful. They look like they've been knit by a machine. They're absolutely beautiful. And so I've been thinking about her and channeling my inner Andrea from Fruity Knitting and telling myself, if you want this to fit, if you want it to be a lifelong garment, you need to do a gauge swatch. And so that's what I'll be doing. That might be a finished object that you see, you know, with this yarn in the next episode of the podcast, but that's what's coming down the pipe in my queue and in my project forecasting. Next is a smaller project that I'm going to cast on as soon as I finish the Winter's Fern hat that I'm working on, the colorwork hat I just showed you guys in the works in progress segment. The next project that I have in mind once Winter's Fern is off the needles is called Mira. It is another colorwork hat. It is by Amy Christophers, and it is absolutely gorgeous. The colorwork motif is really, it's just dramatic, lots of peaks and valleys, which I think that chevron type, you know, look that you see, it's just really, really striking, and I love it. And I especially love the colors that you see here in the sample that's shown on Ravelry. It's all knit with Barocco yarn. I'm not sure what I'm going to be using. I'll probably get some patterns, something, you know, budget friendly for this, but definitely something nice and woolly and sticky to make that color work really pop. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using stash yarn for this, only because I don't have much left in the way of worsted yarn that I think would look all that great together, but I will do some stash diving and we'll see what we can find. But if not, I'm definitely sticking with a budget yarn, because these colorwork projects, with all of the different skeins that you need, can get really expensive if you're buying full skeins of really fancy yarn. So we'll see about that. But that is definitely coming after I'm done with my Winter's Fern. So that is what I have planned in my queue right now on Ravelry. I'm super, super excited about that. And I'm thinking that I'll be able to definitely start Mira probably in the next couple of days or so. And then I'm hoping to have my Veronika cardigan finished by mid-October so that I can start casting onto the truss cardigan. and the rest will be history from there. So that's what's coming down the pipe. Alright guys, I want to do a little bit of an acquisition segment in this podcast only because I have some things I really want to share with you. I don't plan on doing an acquisition segment every time I acquire new yarn unless that project is going to be cast on relatively soon or it's one of my forecasting projects, something like that. I just don't feel the need to share that. I don't want it to seem frivolous. And so every time I get new yarn, I'm not always going to share it because I know that that can kind of be too much sometimes, but I do have a yarn acquisition I want to share with you guys, but it's very special to me. It's a special yarn. It's very, very new yarn to me. I've never worked with this kind of yarn before, so I'm excited to share it with you. And I'm going to share with you too an experience I had that's linked to this. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the company Knit Collage, which is run by Amy Small. She is the creator of Knit Collage. It is beautiful, real thick and thin, chunky weight yarn with all sorts of other different little accoutrements throughout. It's just very, very special yarn. It's all handmade in India. It's lovely. It's gorgeous. Amy also has an audio podcast called Collage Creative, and it is a beautiful podcast, super inspiring, where she interviews people who are choosing to kind of take on their own, like become entrepreneurs essentially and live a creative life doing creative work that they love. And it's men and women, and it's super inspiring. And I've been just devouring her audio podcasts when I'm dyeing yarn, when I'm knitting, what have you. It's really great. And listening to the way that she interviews these people and the back and forth between both of them, I don't know, there's just something about her that I just find so warm and inviting, and I just love this podcast that she's put into the community. And then of course her, contribution to the yarn portion of this community as well. So she's just a really inspiring person for me right now. And when I was at Vogue Knitting Live, I knew she was going to be there. I saw that she was lecturing on Friday morning, and I wasn't going to be there until midday Friday, so I was going to miss that lecture. But I was going to make it a priority to see her because I knew she was vending as well. And we find her booth, and she's there with her sister, and at the time that we were there, the whole marketplace was pretty slow. It was kind of a weird time. I think people were in classes. And she didn't have anybody in her booth, and so I introduced myself, and I kind of did the whole fangirl thing, mildly. I'm not really the fangirl freak out when I see you type. I think I'm kind of shy and uncomfortable, but I introduced myself, and I told her that I loved her podcast and everything that she's doing, and that her yarn has always been just kind of, dream yarn for me. I never knew what I would knit with it, but it's just so beautiful. And we talked for a really long time. It was just really cool, and her sister's a really cool person. She's just a really cool person, so I felt like that was a real highlight of my trip in relation to the knitting convention. So that was really special to me. Anyway, long story long, when I was in her booth, I was so inspired by all the yarn. I decided I was going to pick up some of her yarn, and one of the patterns that she had that she had on display as one of her samples is this really pretty vest that was designed by Karen Templer of Fringe Supply Company and Fringe Association. It's just a basic kind of like tank top vest type deal that's made with really, really chunky yarn. And it was so adorable. I'll pop a picture here so you can see it. What this sample that you're seeing here is not knit with Knit Collage yarn, but Amy knit hers with her Knit Collage yarn. And so it's called Spun Cloud is the yarn that Amy used for hers. But it's a really pretty vest, and I was so inspired by the yarn, and I thought it's such a simple kind of canvas for such beautiful, heavily variegated in weight and bedazzled pretty much yarn. I just thought it would be a really cool palette for that, or, canvas for that. So I picked up the yarn that I would need for that pattern, and I'm super excited to share that with you. So the first one that I want to share, this is a sampler pack. Let me make sure that I'm saying everything. Yeah, sampler knit and crochet kit. And you guys, it's beautiful. So this has been sitting behind me back here, but this is the kit. And I didn't want to open it just because I wanted you to see how beautiful it was bundled together. But you can see it's not just wool yarn. There's fabric yarn. And then, of course, you're getting, your wool yarn. But look at all these little doodads that are kind of in the yarn. Like, this is incredibly special yarn here. The various different sizes. Like, look at that. There's a really pretty... it's not stellina that's running through there. The name of what that is escapes me at the moment, but it's a gold strand running through the yarn. Oh, it's stunning. Absolutely stunning. I mean, just look. Like, what? How beautiful is this yarn? So this was the first one that I purchased, and this, oh, yeah, look, I mean, just hold on. Do you see the colors here? Right in this skein? Like, how gorgeous is that? So this was the first one that I purchased, and then I also purchased a big skein of her spun cloud yarn. So this is, I kind of hanked it up a little bit here, but this is spun cloud. It had, you know, this is going to tell me what that little filament is called running through there. It's 100%, okay, so it's 100% wool, but it has 2 skinny strands of lurex applied around the wool. So that's what you're seeing, that gold strand that runs around the wool. It's called lurex. Oh, and it's beautiful. So I have bought these 2 with the intention of knitting that vest. And Amy was telling me that this is plenty to use for that. And I was just so inspired by all of the different textiles that are being used in this yarn, thinking like, I'm going to challenge myself to pull an Amy Small. And I don't know, you guys need to check out her Instagram feed because she knit a Penguano Stephen West cardigan with her yarn and it's incredible. Like this thing is a beast, but it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And the way she experimented with texture and textile, it's just absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited to challenge myself to do that with this particular pattern. Down the road, it's not in my queue right now. I'm going to keep 5 projects in my queue at any time. This is not one of them yet, but it's coming. And it may get swapped in for another one, who knows. But I'm excited about it. I'm excited to use a new to me yarn. And to support Amy's, you know, business, because what she's doing is really inspiring and really cool. So definitely check her out if you're not familiar with Knit Collage or Collage Creative Podcast. Yeah, it's fantastic. So these 2 will be a future vest. And, you know, I can't think of the name of the vest right now. I don't have it sitting in front of me. But that's what these are going to go into. I'm like so in love with this. So this is a really exciting acquisition. And you know, like this ribbon that's holding this bundle together, how adorable is that ribbon? That would be really pretty sewn into like the inside of a ribbing section of a sweater. Ugh, so cool. Okay, so that is my first acquisition. Like I said, I've been on this garment knitting kick, and I've been wanting to find just the perfect patterns for knitting, that sweaters that I really think that I would want in my wardrobe that fit and suit me and my personal style. And sometimes it's hard to find those exactly the way you want them unless you design them yourself, or you just have to dig a little deeper and think of the less expected routes for finding these really cool patterns, and I think that I've done that. So I did recently purchase a sweater's quantity of a Norwegian wool yarn after devouring Paper Tiger on YouTube, her Diana Walla's whole channel. She inspired me to try Norwegian wool yarn, and so I decided I was going to go ahead and do that. So I kind of did some research. I checked out Isolde Teague's online shop because she does offer lots of different yarns and some Norwegian yarns in there as well, and I came up with, and this is a yarn that's recommended by Diana on her YouTube channel as well, but I just loved the color, and I don't know, I just thought this was a really cool, there's this cool story behind it, just, I don't know. And I'll talk more about this yarn later. I'm not going to go into a great deal about the yarn because I want to share with you these other acquisitions, but the yarn that I have here is Tinda Pestle Garn, and it's a DK weight Norwegian wool 2-ply yarn, and the actual fiber itself is a darker color. It's not an ecru yarn, and so this this pretty mauve color that you're seeing here has kind of a deeper, more rich color to it because of that, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's so rustic. It's definitely scratchy. However, I have swatched with it a little bit, and the fabric that is created from this is not as scratchy. It has a nice hand to it. So this is a recent acquisition, and like I said, I do have a sweater's quantity of this, and so lately I have been thinking about possible projects that I could knit with this yarn, and I really wanted to make sure I was finding just the right garment to knit with this yarn and not just jumping into something just to use it, because it's really a beautiful new to me yarn and I wanted to do it justice. And so I found a pattern on Ravelry for this sweater by Susan Bates, and you could tell when you looked at the picture that it was like a vintage pattern, but the sweater was so adorable, and this is it. So here is the sweater I'm talking about. Like, just take this whole look in, you guys. Like, how I love this look so much. This is how my mom used to dress, you know, back like in the early 80s and late 70s, and I always love looking at old pictures of her and her outfits. They're just the best. Anyway, this sweater is just everything. I love the shape. I love the texture. It's beautiful. But you can't find it anywhere unless you have the Susan Bates pattern book. And so I'm thinking, I tried to find, like, have it connect me to a website. You can't download it from Ravelry. It's just in the database. So I decided I was going to try and find this pattern. So I could tell on the picture on Ravelry the issue number, which is up in the corner right up here. I could see the issue number of the pattern book up there. And this is from number 17650. And so I looked it up on eBay, believe it or not, and I found it. And not only does it have this adorable sweater in it, but let me just show you all of the other adorable patterns that are in this. And you guys, this is like, I mean, this is an older pattern book, and so I feel really special to have this. So like, this cardigan is really, really cute. Super nice textured cardigan, a nice length. And then look at this. What? How adorable is that? A Fair Isle, you know, style or inspired collared cardigan. Ugh, I love this so much. I'm really, really excited about this. So this sweater on the front is what I'm going to be knitting with my Norwegian yarn. And this is a DK. This calls for a DK. I might have to make some adjustments depending on how the gauge works up, because that does feel like a lighter DK to me, but we'll see. And then this is definitely, you know, going to be in the future, because I love this color work cardigan. It is just so beautiful. So not only did I get this one, but I also happened to find another one, and this is issue number 17738. Like, how adorable is that? So cute. It looks like something that you would see in like We Are Knitters or, you know, Wool in the Gang or something like that. It's just such a cute style, super relaxed. Love it. Okay, but look, there's more. So this one, and then, I mean, this looks like something, like the style of this might be a little bit long for my liking, but otherwise, like this lace up here and then the color work motif coming through here, it's like so Caitlin Hunter. You know, there's a few like shaping differences, but otherwise it's a really adorable sweater. And that neckline, like, look at that neckline, like how lovely that is. You can tell that it's knit and then folded over and stitched in, and I love that when you have like a crew collar and it's folded over and doubled. I think that that makes it really nice and structured and beautiful. Ugh, I love these so much. So anyway, this one I picked up on Etsy. This one I picked up on eBay, and I'm really excited to knit a few of these. Some of them are a little, you know, out of my comfort zone. Like, I don't think I would, this is really adorable, but I just don't think I would wear it. But otherwise, like, it's still super cute. But yeah, so I'm super excited about this. Diving into some vintage knitting, why not? I think this first pattern on the front, like, it's knit in pieces and sewn together, but it's gonna have a really nice shape. Those shoulders, like that shoulder cap, I guess you could say, or sleeve cap. It's like really, really cute. And those high-waisted jeans, like, I think I even have a pair of jeans just like that. I just love that whole look. Minus the feathered hair. I don't think I'm into feathered hair. So that's all I have for acquisitions. Just a few things, a few fun things that I wanted to share with you guys, but let's go ahead and move on. Okay, last segment, but not least, as it's beginning to darken outside and I have a roast going right now and I can smell it and I'm getting super hungry. I want to talk a little bit about our book club that has started at this point. So this is uploaded on Wednesday. The book club actually officially started on October 1st. So I will have already put information on Ravelry at this point, but just in case, this is what's going to be going down for the book club. So I have planned, and I put this in my notes, I want to make sure I'm going off of my notes here. Okay. I don't know where you guys are in like your reading rate and how much you are able to consume and what amount of time, but I'm assuming we have 2 weeks between podcasts, so we know that. And I'm thinking that most of you are listening to the audio version. I think some of you are reading the actual book, but most of us are listening to the audio version, so I'm trying to take that into consideration. And then I'm also trying to take into consideration the fact that we don't want this to be too long of an ordeal, because we don't want people to lose interest or things to come up that cause people not to be able to finish. We want this to be a manageable kind of project or book club. And so I'm trying to limit this to 4 weeks. So we're going to make this a 4-week book club. I have planned that I want to do 6 chapters every 2 weeks. So you need to read no more than 6 chapters every 2 weeks. And it's best to try to keep up so that way the conversations that happen in the chatter threads, you can kind of keep on pace with that without having any spoilers or anything like that. So 6 chapters every 2 weeks for a total of 4 weeks. There's 24 chapters in the book. And then in each week or every 2 weeks, however you want to do it, and you can participate in the chatter thread as much as you want. But I do ask a minimum of once, or I guess I should say twice every 2 weeks to participate in the chatter thread. And what I mean by that is that your first chatter thread submission would be where you answer essentially these 4 items. I want you to tell me a notable moment in the reading, anything that was notable for you, some kind of a moment, some turning point, whatever sticks out to you, a notable character and why. Of course, elaborate on each of these. Don't just list them for us. Elaborate so that it starts a dialogue. Any strong feelings that you're having, whether it be about the writing itself or the plot or what have you. I want to steer away from any kind of criticism on the writing, because I don't want this to turn into a critique on the writer, the author of the book, or anything like that. Let's just let that rest. Let's just talk about the plot, actually. So let's just keep it at that. This isn't a writing criticism, exercise. So just like your strong feelings about the plot or the storyline at that point. And then any nagging questions that you might have that maybe we could answer together, or some other people that are participating might be having them as well, what have you. You can share your knits on Instagram using the hashtag WNH Bookalong 2018. And then that way we know that is what you're working on while you're listening. And you don't have to work on the same thing every time you listen. It's completely up to you. But share your knitting accomplishments with us. Actually, let's make that a part of the chatter thread as well. So the other things that I mentioned, and then what kind of knitting accomplishments have you, accomplished in the time that you were listening to your, 6 chapters? So some little things that we can start the conversation with. And then I also want you to participate in other people's questions as well. So instead of just putting your 2 cents into the bucket, I want you to also participate in others as well to be able to actively be involved in the book club. So I hope that's not too rigorous. I just want to make sure that it's engaging and interesting and not idle. Otherwise, I feel like it kind of takes the fun out of it. It's nice to be able to have an actual talk. And so because we're not in person and won't have that open forum conversation, this is kind of the best way that I could think of. If you have any suggestions, just let me know. But for right now, that's what we're going to do. So at any point within that 2-week time, whenever you finish your 6 chapters, and try not to go ahead of us, you want to keep pace with us just because that way it keeps it from spoiling it for anybody else or for yourself or whatever. But as you finish your 6 chapters, head over to Ravelry, put your 2 cents into the chatter thread using that criteria that I mentioned. And I'm going to list that in the opening of the chatter thread so that you can find exactly what you need to be, how you need to be responding in the chatter thread. But do that and then also reply to somebody else's. So I don't know if you've ever taken online classes before. This is kind of a similar format, but hopefully it's going to be a lot more fun because it'll be more engaging and a lighthearted story. But that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to leave it there. If I think of anything new, I will keep you guys updated. Again, this is new for me, never done this before, so it's definitely a work in progress. So if you have any questions or suggestions, please send them my way. Otherwise, happy reading, happy listening, and I will see you guys. We will talk more about this in the next 2 weeks on the next episode of the podcast. But for right now, that's where I'm going to leave you with the Wool Needles Hands book along. Alright guys, it is almost time for me to head out, but before I go, I want to remind you guys of the Wool Needles Hands LYS call to action, or local yarn shop call to action. This is where I ask you, the viewer, to go out into the wild to your local yarn shop, or your local quilt shop, or your local sewing shop, whatever fiber shop that is kind of your place to go to be inspired. Get some footage of that place, whether it be video or photo, send it in to me at the podcast at woolneedleshands@gmail.com. I'll compile it into a cool little segment at the very end of the episode. I kind of like this as a way of broadening our perspective of this knitting community, and I love that you guys help me to curate this. Guys, that is all I have time for today. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your busy schedules to hang out with me, get some knitting done, and just chat about these things that we all love so much. Be sure to stick around at the end of the show because I'm going to share with you guys my little Vogue Knitting live trip that I took with my sister-in-law for the weekend in San Francisco. We did a lot of fun things. I got some footage, and I definitely want to share that with you guys. So definitely stick around when this is all over for a little extra. Until next time, guys, for episode 34 of the Wool Needles Hands Knitting Podcast, happy knitting, happy whatever it is that you're doing, happy fall, enjoy this time of cooler weather and being with family and having that beautiful fall festive feeling. I look forward to talking with you guys next time. Bye! Hello, we are in San Francisco. This is my sister-in-law Jessica, and we just got here, and you guys, it's so beautiful. The weather is so nice and cool. We are about to go find our hotel. I can't get enough. Okay, let's go ahead and find our hotel. Checked in and we got our name badges, and now we are both like so hungry, and so we are gonna go get some not breakfast, but yeah, lunch. It's not breakfast anymore. Yeah, so we're gonna go get some lunch and some coffee and see what we can see, and then we're gonna come back here for the marketplace at 5. We were there yesterday, but we were kind of like excited and exhilarated, so it was hard to focus on taking video. But we are heading up there now. We're gonna go do some more shopping and then do a hop-on, hop-off bus tour in San Francisco. So I'll do some footage of that. But we're feeling good. Woo! All right, let's see what it looks like. Haight Street in San Francisco. It's brand new. She's only been around for 3 weeks, and it's so adorable inside. So definitely make sure to follow Firebird Yarns on Instagram. But let's go check it out.